Okay, so karibu sana Ben.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you very much, Dimitri, and welcome everyone. Today we are going to listen to Dimitri, who's very experienced, just retired as the UN Director of Procurement, and he's going to say a little bit about himself and on the role that he played there. Just for me to put context, and a lot of discussions that are happening now is on health. How do we keep our employees, our families safe and healthy? But at the same time, I think it's important that we realize that the long-term well-being of our families, of our employees, of our organization depends on the economic recovery of those organizations and our nations. So it's important that we keep in our mind the micros and the macros of what needs to happen within procurement, who are basically the ignition and the facilitators of trade, to ensure that we play a role in that economic recovery from within our areas of operation. And Dimitri is here to tell us about this, about what we can do, how we can engage our stakeholders, what we must already have done by now, what we should be doing by now, and what we should do next. So Dimitri, welcome. The floor is yours now. We hand it, the whole team, to you now.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard, and thank you, Rose, and thank you, colleagues, for joining on Friday afternoon. And it's a real pleasure for me to be back in Africa. This is a very unusual year for me. I haven't been in Africa a single time. And when I was working, I was in Africa probably every month. So it's great pleasure being with you. And as you know, I worked for the United Nations Procurement for 32 years. You have my official bio, and the reason I included this slide, and by the way, about slides, the organizers will have a PDF of my PowerPoint, so you will all have a copy, so you probably don't need to make too many notes. So you will have my email on this slide, and in case you have more questions, do not hesitate to contact me. As we were contemplating this event with Bernard, we were thinking, okay, recovery. Obviously, we're in the middle of crisis. But the world hasn't even started to recover. We don't know whether we'll have second wave, what will happen tomorrow, when we're going to have vaccine. Recovery is not a one-day act. Recovery is a process. And also, it's the time in order to recover. It's more than just recover from a couple of days sickness. It's your whole body, your whole organism is getting rebuilt, as in case in procurement. At the same time, it's obvious that procurement is being undervalued in many organizations. So we decided to have a little bit wider discussion, what procurement brings to the table in these days of crisis, in which direction we collectively as a profession are heading, what will be the face of the new profession, what's our reaction to COVID, and we will probably come to some conclusions. So I intend to speak for 45 minutes, and then I will pass the floor to you for questions and answers, if it's acceptable to you. Let's start with procurement value proposition. Procurement, as you probably know, is a very old profession. First procurement officers were working in ancient Egypt in pyramids. They were not strictly procurement, they were scribes dedicated to recording material. So there were no dedicated procurement officers, but the profession existed 5,000 years ago. For real, procurement came during the Industrial Revolution, when there were clerks, quantity surveyors, and this was almost 200 years ago. And procurement profession existed as a back office, neglected. If you failed in everything, you go to procurement, probably till 1980s. In 1980s, things began to change. Many people stopped perceiving procurement as a cost center, but rather as something that's adding value. And we had 2 points of view crystallized on procurement. One was famous Michael Porter, who invented value chain, and to him procurement clearly was a secondary function, same as human resources. And on the other hand, the great Slovenian Peter Kraljic, who was the one who said that there will be no procurement, but there will be supply management, and the task of supply management will be adding value. Then things went much faster. 90s were the years of offshoring and outsourcing. 2000s were electronic everything, e-commerce, e-auctioning, e-procurement. So this was a big fashion. In 2010, we started talking about risk and complexity. And finally, we're coming to understand that $1 saved in procurement saves $10 in the final product. That procurement adds value, it's not only saving money. So cost out for 5,000 years, but value in for the last 30 years. So we are adding value, we are adding profits. What is a little bit disturbing in this situation, in this proposition, is that only 25% of chief procurement officers believe that they're adding value. 75% believe that they're there to save money. And this is mentality of buying from the lowest bidder. And this will not get procurement far. And we have to start seeing procurement as partners of other strategic offices, as strategic value creating function. This is a matrix where procurement actually adds value. Nobody will take from us mandate of negotiating, squeezing the supplier and save money. But equally important becomes risk management. There's an American saying, every contract is risk allocation. So you pay a little bit more money, but you have a little bit less risk. Or you take risk and you save money. Who is managing those risks? That's our job, buying risk and selling risk. That's the job of procurement. Procurement also is a function that ensures compliance. And many CPOs, when asked what's the major problem in procurement, they will tell you that the problem is twofold: maverick buying and tail spend. Maverick buying, that's when in your organization nobody asks procurement, they just go and buy behind your back. In some organizations, maverick buying amounts up to 50% of their spend, and this is totally unacceptable. And tail spend is unmanaged buy, approximately 10% of bits and pieces, small buy, which will take approximately 80% of your resources. So compliance and thinking what to do with tail spend, this is very important for procurement. And the fourth side is growth catalyst. Procurement officers are pretty often called agents of change. Procurement officers participate in innovation. I'll give you one example. Procter & Gamble, 14 years ago, came with innovation sharing. They decided to outsource or to partner 50% of their research and development. So instead of doing 100% of R&D, they started doing 50% of R&D. They saved billions and they produced better products because procurement was a catalyst of getting innovation into Procter & Gamble. In the United Nations, every 2 years, we carry out technology fair, which is a growth catalyst for the United Nations technology people. When people can come and have a look what technology is available, for example, for peacekeeping. So this is a very important function of procurement. But as we live in the time of change, I put here on this screen advice from Gartner, a very famous consultancy. And they add fifth side to the procurement matrix. Improvement in user experience and reduction in process cycle time and quickening of access time to key information. So this is also where we bring value, because probably no other function within the organization has better access to information and doesn't have more influence on process cycle time. So to summarize, we are moving from cost to cost plus value procurement paradigm. And you will read this slide, but I would like just to emphasize to you that to become next generation procurement, you must achieve operational excellence. You must work with suppliers together on innovation. You must manage risk, compliance management, and you have to provide market intelligence. These are components of procurement of the future. Without this, you are together with builders of Egyptian pyramids 5,000 years ago. So it's time for us to become next generation. I'll give you several case studies of procurement transformation. One is organization that we all know pretty well, is British Royal Mail. They started procurement transformation quite a while ago, and they started it through redesigning of their organization. They flattened management structure. They have much less managers now. They had 14 grades of male employees. They reduced this to 3. They empowered their directors, and they brought new blood, and they empowered this new blood within the organization. As a result, the value of stock of Royal Mail went up by 300%. Don't look at their stock now because they were severely hit by COVID, but procurement reorganization brought a lot of value to Royal Mail. Siemens took another approach. They did transformation through process redesign. They came up with 60-25-20 plan. 60% of global spend, they aggregated, they centralized. They were very, very decentralized organization. So they pulled together 60%. They increased sourcing from the emerging markets, including African markets, by 25%. And it brought in new ideas, and it brought in better costs, better prices. And they also did something that we hate to do. They reduced number of suppliers by 20%. They realized they didn't need that many suppliers. In addition, procurement people were allowed to comment on specifications, and procurement people offered 1,000 measures to reduce cost and to improve specifications of products, because procurement knew what was available in the market. So that's Siemens. Some companies go digital transformation. IBM, 170 countries using 13,000 vendors. They went through business intelligence and analytics. You probably heard Watson, artificial intelligence. They used Watson AI to get business forecast and to digitize through robots all procurement routine operations. So order management, payments is done mostly by robots. The system that IBM created is state of the art. It optimizes. I don't say that it does solely. There's still human supervision, but the system optimizes 62 million transactions per year. Technicolor took somewhat different approach, and they outsourced to the cloud. There's a company called Coupa, this cloud platform, and they're doing for Technicolor same as Watson for IBM. Essentially, they allowed 2,500 users to get catalogs from Coupa, cloud catalogs, but then the job of procurement officers is to approve transactions. Buyers became approvers, and buyers are checking what's in the catalog. When it came to tail spend, those little 10-15% of bits and pieces, they outsourced it all to Amazon. They realized that cost of transactions, cost of doing business will be higher than what they can spend. So they said, Amazon, please take it over, do it for us. So as you can see, there are many ways to skin the cat, but the conclusion is, and this was established by McKinsey consultants, that companies who started transformation before COVID-19 survived COVID-19 much better. If you were in the process of redesign, you were much more resistant to the change brought by the virus. Important to emphasize, everything is based on data. You do not do transformation for the sake of transformation. In God we trust, all others must bring data. That's from Edward Deming, and this is most important. Whatever you do must be on foundation of facts and not just vision. You have to sell value proposition to your bosses and to your peers. Start small. Do not offer immediately to overhaul everything. Small wins are very important. Be concise in your communication. Sell with data, as we discussed in previous slide. Do not take high horse attitude towards your clients. Have empathy. When people come to you angry, they are angry for a reason. Have empathy. Please understand that people are not used to wait. They have great ideas. Listen to them. Try to be helpful and get as many offices on your side. So procurement, which is, well, you probably know Gilbert comic series. And chief procurement in this series is described as a dinosaur. And for my staff, when I worked in the UN, I had a word when they were doing something sloppy. I used to call it dinosaursing. Dinosaursing. So we should not be dinosaurs. We should think what we can do to bring value and help our colleagues. What will happen in 2020s? Technology is changing. We are getting this digital client relationship, e-commerce, e-banking, commonplace. Robotics. Robotics is replacing the robotized warehouses where artificial intelligence decides when and how to replenish stock. The Internet of Things is guiding our maintenance, and it started in the advanced companies guiding maintenance purchases. New models such as Uber, shared economy, cloud, hardware as a service, software as a service. This is another trend. Data management, big data and cognitive, meaning self-learning systems. 3D printing will change sourcing channels and will change production costs. Blockchain, thing of the future. Blockchain will allow absolutely transparent, every move recorded, purchasing with to blockchain attached are terms and conditions to our contracts. This is a little bit further ahead, but it will come to you. And finally, drones. Last mile logistics being done by drones. We tested them in the United Nations with delivery of pharmaceuticals. Amazon.com tested them in hard to access places. Many corporations tested them. They're becoming cheaper and cheaper, and last mile logistics probably will go to drones. So these will be technologies that you would want your offices to know. In addition to technology, corporate social responsibility, geopolitics. You look what's happening between the United States and China. Obviously, this will affect US procurement people when two economic giants are fighting. Small guys like ourselves are suffering. Demographics. So the buyers become, and the market becomes younger and younger. And definitely macroeconomic trend. Are we in recession? Are we not in recession? How long the recession will last? This will all shape the world of procurement, and interaction may result in shaping procurement in a very chaotic manner. You have to be resilient, and you have to be adults in this madhouse of modern economics. The line between disorder and order lies in logistics. This is Sun Tzu said 500 years before Christ, and this is our role, to be a line between disorder and order, to maintain the structure in the system. The forecasts have been very inaccurate for procurement. In 2011, 2013, there were two major forecast studies, one done by Ariba, procurement sourcing company, one done by SIPS in London, Vision of the Future. And essentially they said enterprise level procurement organization will go away. There'll be no procurement officers. Strategic business units, i.e. requisitions, will absorb procurement. Prices will be all transparent and published in the catalogs. So overall, the accuracy was under 50%. It's very difficult to predict what will happen. But I would like to draw your attention. First of all, if you want to write your own forecast, here are the questions you will have to answer, starting with what direction it evolves, and ending up with questions, who's going to handle what in the organization, starting with risk management, and who calls the shots. So try to answer these 6 questions. You can come up with your own forecast. I wanted to show you a little movie, but okay, we have no time for that. I would like to recommend you 2 publications about future of supply chain management. One is published by SIPS. It's called The Future of Procurement and Supply Management. And the other one is a small blog by senior procurement consultant Jonathan O'Brien called The Future of Procurement in 2030. Combined together, these 2 publications, which are probably 30 pages, will give you a very good idea of where we are moving. SIPS study, I will not be taking you through all these features, but I summarized for you, gives you 2 scenarios. One is that the market will consist of titans, that giants like Amazon, Cisco, Apple, IBM have destroyed all the little guys, created controlled business groups, and there's no more market. Essentially, it's monopolies. There'll be no more business to customer. There'll be everything will be like B2B model. On the other hand, everything will be small enterprises. There will be networks of smaller enterprises, and there will be community pooled. So there will be regional networks, many of them city-based, and everything will be done through electronic connection. And survival of corporations survival of networks will depend on their resilience. So these are extreme scenarios, but if one of them happens, this is the future of procurement. If it's big guys winning, titans, we will be doing only risk management because prices will be dictated and commercial conditions will be dictated to us. And it will be somebody else dictating business strategy. If it's networked, we will have to understand how networks of manufacturers work. We will have to be in the middle of it, and we will have to become coordinating center. You will read more in my PDF. With Jonathan O'Brien, I color-coded his forecast. Green is something I agree with. Purple is something that I doubt, and red something I disagree. So data will be central, yes. Network replacing most traditional corporations, I don't think so. Amazon is not going anywhere, Apple is not going anywhere. On the other hand, and supersized giants, yeah, they will continue to exist. Full automation of routine, generic, non-complex spend. Yes, much of the buying will be done by robots, and there will be no need for the current number of procurement personnel. Then he's suggesting RFPs are dead. The virtual marketplace, Amazon style, will do the work for us. So that means that, like in Amazon, somebody else will be providing you with ranking you buy from. This will be dictating you where to buy. I don't think RFPs are dead. I believe the competition, and this is human nature, I believe the competition is with us to stay. However, artificial intelligence, predictive analytics will be used extensively to check the prices and to create agile supply chains. There will be no more procurement separate from supply. They will combine, and there will be a single function. And for the last 5 to 10 years, we were witnessing that procurement and supply were getting closer and closer. The last one is a fun one. I don't know what you think. I put a question mark, though I am very skeptical. Procurement staff will be replaced by mathematicians, by digital experts, by pioneers of artificial intelligence, experts in cryptography and data security, or by strategic thinkers. I agree with strategic thinkers. Yeah, this is necessary in our profession. However, suggesting that commercial people are replaced by talented mathematicians, it's stretching it a little bit too far, but it's an interesting proposition when you think about skill sets, including skill sets to deal with crisis management during COVID. Conclusion. We're facing unprecedented opportunity to revamp our operations. Procurement in 10 years will be nothing like it today. There's huge potential in our profession, but only those organizations that start working toward this new state today will get the benefits. Once again, guys, remember what I told you. 75% of CPOs believe in old style working. Those 75% will not get anywhere. We have to change as a profession. I brought you supply chain top 25 list, companies to follow. For the last 7 years, the best supply chain, the supply chain of the future, is by Apple. The companies in the gray zone, shaded by gray, are Apple, Procter & Gamble, Amazon, and in 2018, McDonald's. This is called masterclass. Those are the companies who are in this group, I believe, more than 3 times in the last 5 years. So these are the companies for us, for you, for me, my ex-colleagues, to watch and understand what they are doing right. Let's look at the case of Apple. We all love Apple. So major premise. Inventory is fundamentally evil. You kind of want to manage it like you are in the dairy business. If it gets past its freshness date, you have a problem. And indeed, average turnover of inventory in Apple 40 times a year. 40 times a year they rotate. It's incredible speed. How did they achieve that? They cut inventory. They cut down on warehouses. They used to have 17, now they have 1. And they made suppliers compete between themselves. Why they did it? Because Tim Cook, the chief executive, came from the background of procurement. So Tim Cook knew what he was doing, and he knew the value that procurement could unleash. He built very strong supplier relations management. He had fewer suppliers, but the relationship was stronger and long-term, so he provided good incentive. He was keeping, and he is keeping, his suppliers straight through artificial intelligence, business analytics, big data. And then he centered everything around China, which allowed very fast R&D, fast manufacturing, and fast turnaround. And the last suggestion about China, has been in the center of many, many arguments since COVID started. Was it a mistake? Was it a fatal mistake to put all your eggs or all your apples, for this matter, in one basket? So what did Tim Cook do right? What he did wrong? Thus far, he proved right because Apple will be able to release iPhone 7. But it's unclear whether their model is sustainable because the profits of their major partner company, Taiwanese company called Foxconn, they were hit on both sides, on supply and demand. Their profits are down 90%. What will happen if Apple loses Foxconn? Do they have additional alternative ways of supplying? How good are their suppliers and components manufacturers? These are the questions that we will see in the autumn when Apple brings to the market new Apple Watch, new iPhone, and new iPad. I am really sitting on my hands to find out whether Tim Cook's scenario will work. Let's see where the procurement is vanishing and where procurement is going and what skill sets we need to survive. I just mentioned to you that there'll be less procurement officers, and it's already less procurement people employed right now. At the same time, recent polling by SIPS found that 56% of organizations are struggling to find procurement talent. So there's overproduction of people who are transactional, who are keying in data, but 56% of corporations cannot find good procurement officers, people who have analytical skills, people who have vision, people who understand modern procurement. And I believe there's a huge potential for all of us in this market, which is inevitably becoming more and more supplier market, us being suppliers. What skills are most demanded? It's interesting that skills are different skills are demanded in different parts of the world. United Kingdom is aligned with Sub-Saharan Africa, with Australia, and with New Zealand. The most demanded skill is communication. North America and Middle East, negotiation is the most demanded. They're looking for good negotiators. And in South Africa, they are looking for specialists in sourcing. So when you're writing your next resume, if you're looking for a job in Africa, concentrate on communication. If you're looking for the job in Maghreb or the Middle East, then it's negotiation. Challenges for the region. Many regions called being seen as strategic partner, being invited to the table of what we call C-suite, executive. In Africa, it's somewhat different. African businesses believe, African procurement people believe that the major problem, major challenge is budget restraints. I understand that African companies do not have money and you're hit with the budgets. But I believe this is a little bit of the stretch. And I believe that in the time of COVID, you guys will not get more budgets. You will get more pressure to do more with less. So, but this is for you to see which region is asking for whom. There was a survey pretty recently by American Productivity and Quality Center, which skills will be needed for the future in procurement. And they divided into job-specific skills. And you see who voted for what, how many out of 2004 chief procurement. Supplier relations management, they was deemed the most important job-specific skill. General business skill. It's music to my heart. Business ethics, almost 60% said that in our profession, business ethics is the most important general business skill. And what's interesting that in business ethics, they included corporate responsibility. This is a great result, which tells you again that our profession is changing. Social skills, communication, 56%, followed by stakeholder management, i.e. ability talking to your peers. This is interesting category. Deep work skills. These are the skills of being able to concentrate on achieving a goal while you are being distracted, while you're being under stress. So these are deep work skills, and to me the most important is critical thinking. It's high in the rank. However, innovation is not awfully. Innovation and creativity is not ranked well by Chief Procurement, and I would probably disagree with that. So taken overall, 10 most important skills as voted by our colleagues. The most important, business ethics, followed by communication, and then I'm lost. Number 3, stakeholder management, ability to talk to peers. And number 4, relationship building. To me, this is strange to have these 2 skills on top of critical thinking, leadership, and complex decision making. I was disappointed in our community when I saw that critical thinking, analytical abilities, leadership are ranked lower than communication. I believe profession will change, and what came as very disappointing in this polling, that you look at top 10 skills, there's not a single skill related to technology. So technology did not even make it to the top 10, and I believe you and I have to think better what skills really matter, but it gives you an idea of what's appreciated at the market. At the same time, this is the stats which are the most important technological knowledge fields for procurement. The most important within 2 years, cloud, followed by mobile, and followed by robotics. So nobody will take this away from you, and we will have to master it. 75% are undergoing through business transformation. This is a little joke that some people think that it's COVID-19 that will lead business transformation. As a matter of fact, in some cases it is. I know a case of one company who had, before COVID, who had planned to turn their business online doing sidewalk delivery, roadside delivery. They planned 18 months. When COVID hit, they did it within 2 days. So digital transformation happens under pressure. It happens even faster. Are we getting paid enough? How much procurement officers are paid? Good news for Africa. Last year, average raise for procurement person, procurement professional in Africa was 10.5%. Average salary in Africa was $19,250. One thing I could not understand, you probably understand it better, for advanced professional, $32,000 a year, and for professional, it's more, $34,000 a year. So officers are getting more than directors, than managers. And for tactical, it's 9,000. For your comparison, I can tell you that in South Africa, it's close for senior professionals, it's close to 600,000 South African rand, $37,000. In the United States, around 150, and in the UK, it's 100,000 pounds. So you have comparison. In addition to this is the survey showed very disturbing information that in Africa, like nowhere else in the world, there was a disparity between men and women in procurement. Men were getting 28% more money than their female colleagues. And I have to tell you, the same situation is all over the world. Men are getting more, but the delta, the difference is the highest in Africa, and I believe there's huge space for improvement for corporate management. The report shows that 31% of procurement people in Africa last year received bonuses that amounted on average 16% of your paycheck. Almost universally, corporations paid medical insurance, but when asked what they would like to get in addition to medical insurance, procurement professionals replied that they would like to get support for their education, and they would like to get help with school fees for their children, and 44% wanted to have company car. So these are the benefits. I will not be commenting. I'm just telling you this for your information so you know where you stand. To recapitulate, we are becoming an attractive, high-paid profession with less people employed, profession that goes through transformation, but it's unclear to predict which new jobs will be created. So if I were joining the job market today, I'd be looking very seriously at technology, at critical skill, at analytics, forgetting about more traditional skills of bargaining, etc. I believe we will go towards more analytical type of business. Finally, COVID. We have several waves. We are hit by COVID. We're hit by recession. Before that, we got hit by climate change. I cannot do movie, but what we have to understand is that the new normal is disruption. In our world, in the world of supply chain management, way before COVID started, we started living in the world of disruption. Remember 2011 tsunami in Japan? It hit everybody because IT electronics were hit by Japan, 2011. Then there was labor unrest in Chile. Production of copper in the world went down by 5%. Supply chains were disrupted. Global warming, yes. So it's a new norm. We have to learn how to live with disruption. And as I said, the companies who were going through re-engineering, through transformation, survived COVID better. Companies understood the need to re-engineer and redesign. So even before COVID started, 50% of large corporations were expecting major changes in their supply chains, and 10% were going for complete overhaul of their supply chains. COVID-19 made this change trend much steeper. You will be going through changes much faster and through, I hate to say it, through more business pain. KPMG consultants gave a forecast by industry. They gave 4 categories. They said there are companies which are in survival mode and they'll be lucky to survive. Airlines, brick and mortar such as shopping malls, brick and mortar retail, hotels, restaurants, entertainment. Much lower demand, insufficient capital, so it's live or die. Unless they transform, they will not survive. Now they're in survival. Second category, companies that need to transform to re-emerge. They're likely to recover, but the recovery will take a long time. Travel industry, automotive, durable long-term goods, healthcare, real estate and construction. All of them are pretty much needed by the markets, but they will need to change their modalities of operation to recover. Companies that will recover more quickly and who will probably continue with business as usual. banking, already electronic, insurance, electronic, consumer goods, yeah, electronic mostly, this distribution channels, agriculture and transportation. And companies who will make money because consumer behavior is working in their favor. Online retail, interaction platforms, streaming, Netflix, pharmaceuticals, food delivery, telemedicine. So I was talking to such companies. Some of them have done well and the others have done very well. So these are the four groups and how they will recover according to KPMG. McKinsey gave specific forecast for Africa. This is the sectors by Africa. These are critical sectors such as hospitals, essential sectors. They never shut down. But the recovery in Africa, according to specialists, will start in agriculture, followed by manufacturing, information and communication technology, and utilities. This slowest recovery will be in travel, transportation, education, and social services. This is based on the matrix of risk of contagion. It's safe to work in agriculture more or less because it doesn't require very close contact. And economic relevance. Travel is economically relevant, but probably less than agriculture. So it will take longer time to recover. So you have a look at your leisure at this forecast. McKinsey offered 9 ideas to reimagine Africa. In general, they believe that Africa will go for the first time in 25 years into recession and 150 million jobs will be lost. That's forecast. It's pretty grim. And they're suggesting that in order to fight negative trends, you have to reinvent society. You go into digital transformation, and they know Africa is going through this over the last 20 years at high speed, but probably need to do it faster. You have to strengthen African businesses, improve competitiveness, and governments have to be more involved. I will not be going through this, but I will direct you to McKinsey website and you will find the report Reimagining Africa. This is one report I strongly recommend to you. And second report, Banking in Post-COVID Africa. You will find this is absolutely public domain. You don't have to pay. And this is very, very pertinent to African business. 2 reports, Reimagining Africa and African Banking by McKinsey. Okay. 4 priorities: look after the people, look after supply, look after demand, and look after cash. So that's the response that they're suggesting. They created a to-do list. McKinsey created to-do list. So this is what had to be done by now. Task force. Do your companies have a task force doing crisis management? Do you have visibility, end-to-end supply chain? Do you know everybody, every partner who is involved in your supply chain? Do you know your inventory? Do you know your assets? Do you know your teams? Do you have communication protocols? Or Zoom is a new concept to you? You have to conduct supply chain assessment and do it over and over again. So this is all done by now. And again, you will do your own checklist. What we should be doing now, we have to understand risks associated with restarting supply chain. Starting with health risk. If we restart, will we cause additional risks to our customers and to ourselves? Which products should be restarted first? What is new normal for channels of distribution? We have to keep assessing resilience. We have to keep visibility, get an improved data, and continue with crisis management. In other words, and this is something that I heard from management consultant and that I like, recovery speed should be sustainable. You cannot be recovering running. You should be able to calculate, get the speed, and sustain it through the process of recovery. For this, you have to know your strengths and weaknesses, and always remember that you are only as strong as your weakest link. So know your supply chain and know that you're only as strong as the weakest link of this supply chain. And then for the future, you have to future-proof. What you have to do, you have to develop sourcing strategy in the time of when the whole world is changing. You have to think of new operating model. Again, maintaining visibility. And most important, you have to go into science-based supply chain risk management. This will become #1 priority for us in the post-COVID world. You have to identify your risks. Risk is usually identified in time parameter. Time to survive, that's when crisis hits. If crisis is hit tomorrow, how much time will I be able to survive? 2 days or 2 months? And the second parameter is called TTR, time to recover. So these are parameters that you will have to assess and you will have to report to your peers. Even if they're not asking for it, you insist that they listen to you, that this is your time to survive and this is your time to recover. Because if they don't listen, it's their time to survive and it's their time to recover. You have to look at the enterprise risk management maturity. How mature is your company, your organization in dealing with risks? You go into CGMA, that's Organization of Certified Accountants.org. Don't pay attention to these accountants. It gives excellent tool, 75 questions questionnaire that will allow you to assess how prepared your risk management system is within your corporation. Do it. It doesn't take more than an hour, but will give you excellent picture of your strengths and weaknesses. You keep monitoring and you have to perform regular stress tests. I attached a sample designed by Massachusetts Institute of Technology Business, Sloan School of Business, and I will not be taking you through this, but this list gives you scenarios. What if? So scenarios of disruptions, and if disruptions are related to supplier, to internal, to customer, delays, systems let you down, information let you down, someone stole your intellectual property, procurement did not work. So try to go through each of these scenarios and look, if your demand goes down by 20%, how long will you be able to survive? Or how long will it take you to recover? When you take that, suppose your demand goes down by 20% and at the same time raw materials are being delayed by a month, how much time can I survive? When you understand your stress reaction, your ability to withstand stress, you will be very good with designing your mitigation strategies. So remember, you will go online, you will find dozens of risk management strategies, but humankind has not come up with anything beyond 3 fundamentals. Number 1, redundancies and reserves. They're different things. Redundancy is something that you have in excess of your warehouse. Reserves you put all over the world in case you need it. This is a very expensive proposition. It cuts straight into your profit, so it has to be calibrated. I'll give you an example of United Nations. For example, we are obliged for the soldiers in peacekeeping, we're obliged to keep 14 days reserve of canned food. So every month soldiers eat canned food, which allows quartermasters rotate the existing stock. So you have redundancy, but you rotate, but you always have this reserve. Second is flexibility. You may consider plan B, plan C. I have supplier A delivering this this part. Where can I get supplier B, supplier C? And look at flexibility, look at partnerships, look at alternatives, look at what they call in business postponement, when you assemble ready-made goods in the last moment. So there are many techniques, but this is all under the umbrella of flexibility. How flexible are you? And third is very important, corporate culture. Does your culture understand risk? Does your culture has appetite for risk? Does your company measure risk? And where you, as owner of approximately 50% of your enterprise's risk, where you go into the management structure, because you bring risk from the outside with your contracts. So they must listen when you speak. And of course, you should be looking this against data. I love this saying by Winston Churchill that no matter how beautiful your strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. So you look at results of improving your resilience. So conclusions. Recovery will not be one day. Forecasts go from 1 to 2 years. There will be a process and there are no one-size-fits-all solutions. You will have to calibrate your operations on a daily basis as conditions change. Be prepared for a protracted, long process. If it happens tomorrow, great, but we have to be prepared. Your role is central. It's like ventilating lungs of a sick person. You are pumping oxygen into the economy of your company. You are the emergency workers who keep businesses alive, and you have to communicate this to your managers. You are central. You are keeping businesses alive. You have an opportunity, as in every crisis, you have an opportunity to show value and leadership within your organizations. How you perform in this crisis will give you a right to sit in C-suite. So this is a test in some respects for us as a profession. Renewal and transportation, perfect time to overhaul. Chance to look at your technological potential, and if you haven't gone digital, it's probably too late, but consider tomorrow, what can we transform into digital format? By the way, speaking about digital, I read an interesting figure today that only 40% of employees who are now quarantined want to go back to the offices. 60% do not want to go back to work. So think about it. Think how you're going to get those 60% back into the small cubicles, or will it be better to work with them digitally through electronic means of communication? Okay, your chance to reevaluate your supply base, optimize it, unnecessary, get rid of them, and if you see a potential for new partnerships, do it. Finally, I like advice from one chief executive. When asked what he did to change speed of his company, he said, you know, I did two things. I limited the number of participants in the meetings to 9 people, and I banned PowerPoint. So I'm sorry about my very long PowerPoint, but I'm prepared to your questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimtri. Very interesting session. I particularly like the slide around "In God We Trust." Everybody else must bring data. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I am trying to get, if you could forgive me, I'm trying to get to Zoom and I'm failing miserably.
Just stop sharing the screen. Just click stop sharing.
Okay,
and we're good.
Broadcasting.
There you go. Okay, we can finally see you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rose.
All right. So we have a question here from Johnson, who says he didn't quite understand how the line between order and disorder lies in logistics. Perhaps expound on that.
Well, I will give you a very simple example, which is not a COVID example. There's an army saying that morale of a soldier is in the soldier's stomach. So if you give good food, if they have enough food, that makes morale of the army. And every second lieutenant knows that when you change food contractor, you leave a couple of weeks reserve as a good logistician, because at the time of change, disruptions happen and you cannot leave your soldiers hungry. So at some point in my career, I had a very inexperienced logistician doing food supply, and he left no reserve, and he thought that contractor will change overnight. And that was the day when I realized the meaning of the word disorder, when you have 1,000 very angry young men. So you keep the records, you keep the knowledge, and you are conduit of common sense to your management. When your management wants to cut money to the bone, you are the voice of common sense, saying you will have disorder, this is chaotic, this will not work. That's how I understand the wisdom. I can talk about chaotic much more, but that's just one example.
Okay. In one of the slides, you know, when you're talking about the different countries or continents on the key issues around supply chain, what was cutting across was communication, whether it was the UK or in sub-Saharan Africa. Perhaps, you know, communication is seen as a very basic thing, but it's not as basic as we'd want to see it. So share your thoughts around that. Why is it a big challenge, communication, given that we live it, we talk it every other day?
It's a big skill, granted, and I will not be diminishing the value of communication. Ability of, I'll give you my understanding of communication in procurement. It's ability to communicate expectations of your client to the market in terms which will be understood by the market. So it's not making a good speech. It's ability to connect people who are technical to people who are commercial, because your role is in between, and you are this interface between commercial and technical. That's one part of communication. Second part of communication is power of persuasion, power of negotiating, and power of managing your suppliers. You have to explain sometimes, at least in my job with the UN, you have to explain that, listen guys, I am not doing this for profit. I am not doing this because I do not understand the circumstances, but this is the situation with the world peace. This is the situation in your country. This is what makes my organization behave in the manner it is behaving. Could you improve conditions for me? And this is also the art of communication. You know, so it's power to persuade others. And then another with communication, third part of communication is communication internal within your company. Procurement is not liked, let's face it. People perceive procurement officers as people who are standing between me and my toys. So you have to communicate to the clients the reasons for your decision. You have to understand why they want something that they want. You have to be good listener, which is part of communication as well. So it's a very important. It's a very important skill, but it really becomes a skill when it's complemented and it's based on thinking. Because when you're communicating without thinking, I wish you were silent. Thank you.
Great. I see a comment from Francis Mrambula here. I think good communication involves the ability to translate procurement outcomes to various functions in the organization, e.g. the CFO, marketing, sales, HR, etc. Then I see a comment that probably could be a question from Andrew Ashene. He says, I support the school of thought that procurement staff will be replaced by the same officers who have enhanced their skills to be analytical, develop predictive model, as agility in supply chains is inevitable. Just for you to elaborate on that point, because sometimes it feels like we are trying to make procurement people to be equal to robots. What kind of analytic skill will you suggest? Will you say things like spend analytics using Excel right now is a sort of a preparation towards that transformation? How will you tell the current procurement person to start applying the analytical skill as we go through digital transformation?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for that, Bernard. Analytical skills starts with understanding of strategic direction where your company is going and matching your needs, your buying profile against the market. So you have to see what you are buying, you see what market is offering, you have to match. And you look at your supply chain, you do gap study. That's another part of your analysis. You have to also understand that most important probably part of procurement is understanding value. For 5,000 years, procurement was based on lowest bidder. So analysis was easy. You buy the cheapest things in the most quantity. Then the clients understood that they don't have enough money to buy cheap. So we came to value buy. We're looking to buy best value. And value is a very difficult concept in procurement and in logistics. Value means different things to different people, different time of the day. So trying to get, and I'm sure you all went through this with your clients day after day after day, to try to understand what is real value of what clients want, what is important for the client. As I said, with Siemens, when procurement analysts were allowed to look at the specifications, they made 1,000 improvement. Same in any business. Procurement can analyze requirement from the point of view of value, and procurement can optimize the spend to buy best value for money. That's in brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see a comment from Judith Ochieng. She says it's a very informative webinar. She really appreciates. My question is, sometimes when we discuss these issues, they sound very private sector, very United Nations not-for-profit organization, which can still be classified as private sector. But we know that the government spends a lot of money, and the government spends with the private sector and sort of ignites the economy. About 13% to probably 20% of GDP spent on public procurement. What will you advise the public procurement officers who would probably have maybe 12 ways of doing their tenders, but normally they will do the open tender, the competitive one. How will you advise them to help the government in this micro and macro recovery journey?
Offer options, look at the best practices. At this point, governments are somewhat behind businesses in the speed of recovery. Also, public procurement officials are in a very difficult situation because nobody changed rules. You mentioned crisis procurement for the United Nations, but for the first time we were hit by a major disaster was in 2010 in Haiti, earthquake. We had more than 100 of United Nations personnel killed there. So it was a huge tragedy. And then we were looking at lessons for procurement after the Haiti disaster. And we came with the idea that when disasters like this happen, the director of procurement, chief procurement officer, should have special delegation of authority. And I received my special delegation, which was $10 million in a single order. But it was balanced by checks and balances. Like every 72 hours, I had to report to my Assistant Secretary General how I spent money. But say if I were back in my job in New York now, I'd have this delegation activated and I'd be buying from this delegation. So the assumption during the crisis is that I'll get the stuff now and I will do the paperwork tomorrow. I used this delegation second time. I was working a little bit in Accra. I used it for Ebola crisis. And Ebola was transmitted, if you recall, was transmitted through West African funeral customs, through dead bodies. That was the most common way of transmitting Ebola. So United Nations was tasked to immediately buy dozens of thousands of body bags. And that was my immediate purchase. And I did it within 12 hours. And we shipped to Guinea, Sierra Leone, I forgot, sorry. But 3 countries we shipped, and it helped contain the crisis. So what I'm trying to say to my government colleagues, you have to communicate urgency to your auditors, to your supervisors, and further up the line, and explain to them that this is not a good time to do competitive tendering, etc. You get what's needed to do the job. Second, when procurement becomes art, you have to understand when there's competitive marketplace existing, when this excuse no longer works, then you go competitive. But finding this balance between urgency and competitiveness and being by the books, that's the art of the chief procurement officer.
Great. Thank you very much. I see another comment from Francis. He says, thanks for the wide breadth of topics, very informative and also challenging to us to transform ourselves and our functions. My last question, which now you'll answer and then also give us your closing remarks, is just to recap on what you said in the presentation on things that we should have done by now as procurement officers, managers, supply chain directors, what we should already have done and completed in a file and presented, what we should be doing now, maybe just in top 2 on each, and what the future holds. It's very important because key for us is how can we maintain relevance, have things that can be applied in our organization and have impact.
Okay, I will not be I will, as I said, thank you very much for the question, Bernard. I will not be talking about what should have been done, because if it's not done, it's not done. Let's, and I will send you a copy of my PowerPoint so you will have it in writing. But I'll give you some rules of crisis management and what should be happening now. First, you have to speed up and delegate decision-making. That's number 1. Empower your second and third in command and delegate to them. This will allow you time to think strategically and work on larger issues. Second, step up execution excellence. you encourage leaders of thinking, you empower them, and you encourage them to make decisions. That's their time to shine. Third one, look at your partners, revisit your partners, see where you can strengthen relationship, and communicate, understanding that we are all in the same boat. See what they can do for you, what you can do for them, and most importantly, it's the time to see what you can do together. That's what I'll be doing in New York now. Number 4, it's a little bit sad, but advice of consultants is flatten your management structure. You don't need so many managers and you're having peaceful time. Having too many middle managers slows down your decision making, slows down your decision communication. So many companies cut down on their mid-management. They have top management and they have working bees. Middle management become working bees unless they are unable to become strategic. Create teams. And teams may be a combination of the most unusual skills. And don't look at the barrier between procurement and somebody. It's just single team which will be brainstorming an issue and reporting to you results, say, end of every day. Next one is look at the working condition of your staff. They work hybrid. Currently, some are allowed to the offices, some are not. Some are working from home, but think where you're going with this. Most likely you will continue with hybrid. So you really have to make hybrid work. Next one is learning experience. You really have to start systematizing lessons learned. And that's essentially it, what I'd be doing from the point of view of general management. From the point of view of strictly procurement, risk management, I'll be doing, I would free up as much time as I could for myself as a director, and I'd be doing stress testing like there's no tomorrow. I'll be writing scenarios and I'll be bugging my peers every day. What if, what if, what if? I'll be asking questions. And I would try to be prepared for whatever second wave, third wave in combination with tsunami in combination with whatever, but stress testing to me would be probably a priority. That's it.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. Any final remarks to the...
In closing, I would like to thank you all. You are extremely important. Without you, business will not be functioning. You're extremely important to recovery, and I believe this is huge responsibility, but also big honor for me to speak into your group. You have my email address. If you need any answers, I'd be happy to help you by email or by remote. Thanks again for listening, and thank you for inviting.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you, everyone. Rose, you want to close?
No, please go ahead, Ben. It's fine. I was just taking the opportunity to thank Dimitri for his time. Perhaps you could share thoughts on the next webinar. Should be an exciting one coming up, isn't it, Ben?
So thank you very much, Rose. Yes, the next webinar will be on how to prepare and submit winning bids. It is for the role of procurement to support the economic recovery of the country, but also the role of suppliers to know how to win business and how to prepare properly into submitting their bids. It's a key area of procurement being the main people who have the demand of goods and services in the population. So make sure same time next week, Friday, to join us, and it will be led by 3 of our own, Sylvia Kurgat, Joshua Wamithi, and Ezekiel Makambi. Thank you everyone for always being with us. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Dimtri, for the support and for taking your time to join us out of your busy schedule. Thank you, Rose, for always being with us even when you are not feeling well. Have a very good evening. Enjoy your weekend and God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. Good. Have a good evening.
Bye.